So today our session is in the office with Dr. Jacquie. That's right. So I'm here and I want to just, shout out to you. So I'm just going to take a couple questions. But our topic is really around, has femininity become more masculine, our identity and purpose? And I thought that that was a really kind of neat question that has so many different facets to it. So let's jump in.
All right. Question one. With women taking more roles in the workplace, are they harder to please?
Are women harder to please? I think that's an individual thing, but I think expectations, we can answer the question by addressing a swath of women. I think women's expectations have changed. We know that women aren't really interested in like the romantic thing like before. We all want to be romance, but we're more interested in not just love, but partnership. We want somebody that's going to help us to wash those dishes and fold those clothes. We want somebody that's going to help us to take care of the kitchen, the cooking, the children. So I think that expectations have definitely changed. But another question was asked to me. They said, do you feel that women have changed in their approach to romance? Are we trying to please a man or are we wanting to be kept? Did I get that right? Yeah, that's correct. That's a good question. And I'm thinking about it because I'm thinking about the industrial age and how our role as women has evolved. We did spend a lot of time in that pre-industrial age and that industrial age taking care of our families, taking care of our husbands and our children. And we were mostly homebound. But then we know when the machine age began, we started going out. We started going into factories and working and helping to make a living. Until now, the 21st century, most women we're outside of the home. I do see something changing, though. I see that women were more into this notion of love and nothing else mattered in my family, even though we had high divorce rates. And now what I see is that I wouldn't say that women don't care about taking care of men. I think that they're more into taking care of themselves. So they want you to help them to take care of their hair and nails. They want you to make sure that they're sexed right, because that sex thing seems to be really at the top of the totem pole. And they want to be taken care of. So what they think that they want and need seems to be higher ranked than I would say that it ever has been. I think women's role as a nurturer used to be more sacrificial. People aren't willing to sacrifice anymore. And I think that puts a new demand on men.
So with that being said, we talked about the demand on men. Are men failing? Have men have failed in this last generation or so? Is that why women are demanding more? Is that what's going on? A lot of men aren't coming to their own, so women are demanding more because there's just men who can't do it?
No, I think that they're demanding more because the times have changed. Listen, if I was home all day and that's all I had to do was take care of those children and cook and clean, now women have to do that on top of going to a 9 to 5. So I don't know, but I just think that the scales are starting to balance now because now we're not in the home. We're out, and we're about. And I think that women's vision for self is awakened. They can see themselves in so many different facets, not just at home. They can see themselves in classrooms. They can see themselves in boardrooms. They can see themselves on spaceships. They can see themselves in race cars. So, yeah, I think that we've given way to our dynamic self, which is really unlimited. We can be dynamic. We can do this and we can do that. Reminds me of that song. You can do with this and you can do, I don't know how the song goes, but what? Okay. With women having new horizons and
Having these new desires and demands that you have seen, what's a man's role to play if they see that their wife has become awakened? She wasn't awakened before, and now she's starting to venture out. A lot of men become uncomfortable, and it's one of the reasons why it's behind a lot of divorces, where somebody's changing and no one can adapt to that. So what do you say to men who are pursuing these more ambitious women?
Well, I think first of all, you got to come to the realization that it's a change of time. Just like nobody's doing counting on fingers anymore. We got calculators. Now we got rid of calculators. We're on computers. So I think you just got to recognize the times. And I think you have to be able to have adaptability. I love the word that you use. You got to be able to adapt. If you can't change, you'll be broken by the winds of change because they're blowing hard and they're blowing faster now because we're seeing that there's such an escalation in change. I mean, it took 50 years between the advent of technology to make certain changes, and now they're being made in months and years. So I think you got to be adaptable, and I think men need to also redefine what manhood means, and they need to redefine their roles. Your role can't be that you're just provider, because women are providing for themselves now. So who are you in that union? What is it that you're expected to do? And so I think for me to say the notion of partnership is a very strong word. I think it's a fitting word, because you could be my lover, but you can also be my partner. So that doesn't mean that you have to control me. It doesn't mean that you have to be worried about, it just means we're independent, but also joined. I like that. And we're independent individuals who are joined.
I don't know if he can add this because I think there's a culture application that's missing. Black women have always worked. This reversal. White women didn't have to work. They had their men who can take care of them. Now you see a changing. Black women don't want to work, they want their men to take care of them. So black men are wanting to have this more traditional role where they take care and lead of their families, they take care of everything, they buy everything. They pay for everything they provide. Because they weren't able to do that before in the past. Where white men have always done that for their white women. So it's more white women wanting to be more independent, I see, and take that role of working. We always had to work. We were used to that.
But the way that we worked was different. So we worked as subservient. There was still this issue of oppression, right? So women of color weren't working, but they were working in fields that they had to work in. They had no choice. They were told when they could go and what they could do. And if they tried to rise above a certain pecking order, they were knocked down. So that's the only thing that I kind of disagree with. I think that women of color now are still able to experience this freedom and this I would say, ability to choose purpose, choose destiny, and then pursue without some, retribution. And I think we're not limited anymore. I agree when you say that maybe men of color were not able to provide for their wives. But like I remember my grandfather, that's what he did. My grandmother stayed home. She didn't work. My mother stayed home. My mother didn't work. My mother didn't start working until I was well into starting high school. Then my mom was allowed to work. Just as I started high school, she was allowed to get a part-time job. And then soon after that, she was able to get a full-time job. So I don't think that there's any one size. I think depending on the region of the world that you're from, you might have seen a different model. Depending on just the nature of, like, my mom's driven, kind of like me. She was one of the ones that figured she could do anything. Got 2 bachelor's degrees, got various certifications, a master's degree, world traveled. My mom was definitely somebody that lived, I felt, outside of the lines. She didn't allow culture or anything around cultural norms to define who she was and what she could do. She was just very independent. And I don't know, I think that still is the thing for us women today, is to find our liberation from cultural norms or expectations and limitations.
One of the cultural norms now that I'm talking about is women are serving themselves, men are serving themselves.
Instead of coming into partnership as one, it's normally, well, who's going to submit to one first? How do we fight that culture of men versus women and get back to men plus women?
Oh, I like that. That's a really beautiful question. Because I say it's beautiful because in my mind, as you're saying it, it's something that I long for. Because I feel like your generation has kind of lost some of that. And I'm not saying, when I started in marriage, I really felt like people need to take care of you. If somebody's not making you happy, I had that notion. It's a very, I'm going to say, underbaked. When you get mature and you start to experience life, you start to realize, like, nothing is really black and white. A lot of stuff is gray, right? And I just feel like men and women today are kind of almost being pulled in different directions. But it's like, we got to get down to the basics of what really matters. Sex is important, but we can't make a decision about who we're going to be with for life, whether they, hit the Richter scale in the bedroom on the first time. I mean, I just feel like that is the least item on the packing scale that you need to be most concerned about. Is it important? Yes. I'm not saying that, but we got to also look at this. Sex is not just about, did you knock it out of the park the first time? It's more about, can I learn or can I teach you how to pleasure me? So I think that, there's a whole journey in us learning to be together, learning to create good sex, It doesn't always come made already. You might have to open up a box and mix up a couple ingredients and make it yourself. You know, you need to get a homemade batch instead of trying to get something that you buy off the shelf that just fits perfectly.
So when someone's already working on themselves, how do you gauge if this is someone I can grow with?
That's hard because you're talking about potential, right? Potential is unmet ability or power. It's unexpressed, in other words. So that's potential. And I just think potential is hard because a lot of times you can believe that someone's going to do something or be something, and a lot of times it just doesn't pan out. So you have to be willing to know that if it never happens, are you okay with them where they are and who they are now? And if the answer to that is no, then it's probably a no for that relationship. But potential is one of the trickiest things because I've bet on it so many times and have been wrong.
Leak. So what do you say to someone who has been wrong with their off society and they have trauma and try to do that? How would you tell them to encourage to still have hope, still have belief?
Someone that has been traumatized by what?
By believing in someone's potential and it having a fall through.
Well, if you take my advice, you wouldn't have that because you wouldn't pursue someone or continue with someone if you're not going to be happy with who they are and where they are right now. So that's the cardinal rule. If it's not a goal with that, that means you're gambling on the unknown that might not ever happen. So is it still a goal if they are who they are now forever, if they never do what it is or become what it is that they said from this point? So if it's a yes still, you're going to be good. There will be no trauma. But if you're banking on them becoming, this is why people get in relationships and try to change somebody. They spend all their time being upset that they're not this and that they didn't do this, and they're nagging on them at all times, trying to make them be something that they're not. That's a problem. That's a recipe.
Karen from Sisters was the thing.
Oh, my goodness. Sisters. Karen from Sisters from Zach. See, now, it's funny that you say that. For any of the viewers that have been watching Sisters by Tyler Perry, there's a character named Karen. So she's saying that she's an example of someone that was trying to make somebody something. See, I don't agree with that. I think that Karen was somebody that didn't know how to nurture greatness because apparently Zach is great. He's great with Fatima. He was just nothing with her because she got bitter and angry and always tried to control, I guess you're right, and change him. But she just tried to force it. And I think that a lot of us try to do that. And that's just once you judge somebody on something, you rob from them the ability to change. So if I judge you on an area that I'm trying to get you to change, my judgment literally handcuffs you into the same place, into the same mode of behavior where you are currently. But now if I love you regardless, and I let you go, and I say, you're fine as you are, but I still hope that maybe that you might change, but I'm still loving you and accepting you fully without reservation as you are right now, you will change. Write that down. You can bake it. Take it to the bank. I'm telling you. That is a spiritual law. But once you have a judgment on that person, they're going to resent you and they're not going to be able to make that change. Tell somebody you need to lose weight, that you're not attracted to them, but you just want them to, I'm willing to go to the gym with you. I'm willing to do this diet, this special. Let's get a nutritionist. I'll do it with you. No matter what support you give, they feel like they're being judged and that you don't accept them, embrace them with that extra 10 pounds or 15 pounds on them. So guess what's going to happen? They're probably not going to lose it. If they do, they're going to lose some and then go back up again. Or they're going to lose the weight and then resent your butt. But that's usually what happens.
In today's, I want to go back to the culture. In today's culture, there's a lot of people making demands and lists. What do you say against that demand and list of what you need?
That demand and list, it's so funny you say that because people might get upset at me, but I really don't believe you can have everything. I don't care what you say. You can have some of the stuff some of the time. You might even get all of it sometime, but you can't have everything all the time. And I think sometimes the list that we make, it shows how we don't understand how life is. Nobody's perfect. And you might get all of those things on that list. You might have to wait a long time, and you might get them. But I'll guarantee you, because we evolve, we're not constant. that person's going to become somebody else by next year. And they're going to become somebody else the year after that because we're always evolving. So who knows how we evolve? That's the reason why we need to have that acceptance and that love for the person no matter what. What I do know is this. I got married and I said, I only want to marry one time. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I only want to marry once. And so as long as we're committed, we're going to make it work. But there's so many things after being married for 30 years that I realized that I did not know when I got married. I didn't know that people can look different. Of course, you would think that that's like, of course. But I never thought that it would be any issue for me. Sometimes it could be an issue. Maybe you don't like the way this looks now. You don't like the way that body part looks now. And it could have been one of the biggest, that could have been your fire right there. Now you got ice. I realized when I talk to couples, like, that they have so many different things that have occurred in their relationship because of time. Maybe the person liked doing these certain things. Now they don't like doing those things anymore. Maybe they changed their diet. They were really eating the same foods. Now all of a sudden this one's a health nut and they only eat this and that. Those kinds of things create division. It could be even political division. I'm with this party, you're with that party. I've just seen how people change over time. And it's like that variable in the equation that nobody knows about, but you'll find out. You live long enough, you be with them long enough, and sometimes those things can cause separation and division.
And a lot of
People focus on being happy.
Yeah.
Relationship, happiness. Marriage, happiness. Is that a naive thought to have? That because I'm married,
I'll be that.
I like that question, but let's define what happiness means. So that to me is the biggest issue. I think that most people, when they say, I want to be happy, first of all, who's responsible for it? Where is the happy coming from? So where is it coming from? What is happy? Is it a feeling? Is it a state of being? A state of mind? And then where is it coming from? A lot of times when people say, I just want to be happy, that means that they're not happy now and they're expecting you to make them happy. That's a big burden. So I believe that happiness comes from within. That's the first thing. I believe that you're responsible for your own happiness. I believe if you come into a relationship, whether it's platonic, whether it's romantic, you should bring your own happiness. Now, can you say that there's some responsibility for the other person to help to maintain your happiness? There is some, but I think that the lion's share is yours. You determine how people treat you. You determine what people do with you, to you. And most of all, you're responsible for your own happiness. I'm happy. I was happy before I got married. I don't feel like anybody made me happy. Did they affect my happiness to some measure? Yeah. But generally, I came with my happy.
what do you say to people who become unhappy and who believe that's the means for divorce?
Yeah, I don't disagree with them, but I would say this. How long have you been unhappy? And what are you unhappy about? So I've been married 30-something years. I have been unhappy for, I'd say, periods of time in my marriage. I've been unhappy for maybe even up to a year. But when I say unhappy, I mean that I'm happy, but there might be bouts in that year where I was dejected or I felt bad about my relationship. But I don't feel like, but I still went to work, was kikiing and, had a good time at work. But if that issue kept arising that created the turmoil, that's where you would see there would be like a, you drop a pebble in a lake of water and those little centrifugal rings, rings come, extend from where you drop the pebble. So there's a reverberation around those disturbances. But I was not happy with the relationship because there were things that needed to be resolved that had not been resolved. There's a lot of people that would have jumped ship. Most of the clients that I serve, if they're unhappy for like 3 months, they're already thinking about separation. And certainly within 6 months of them feeling unhappy about something in their relationship, they're probably definitely separating at least. And I just feel like what I realize is things work out when you have a mind to work them out. They might not work out as fast as you want, but goodness, think about it. So then you throw away your relationship. You ain't even went to counseling. You haven't gotten a coach. All you've done is talk to friends. So there's no real work that you put in to fix whatever's wrong. You now separate. They know, research tells us that separation and divorce is as grueling and as difficult, as traumatic as an actual death. So now you got to do that. You got to bust up your family. You got to ruin your financial standing because people don't get half in the state of Florida. So I'm thinking about all the money that you pay for the divorce attorneys to fight for the property and all the issues of upheaval with the children and all of that, when you could have tried to work it out. That's all I'm saying. If all I had to pay was to be unhappy for 3 months, 6 months, or even a year, and I have been unhappy with aspects of my relationship for up to a year. I think it's pretty close to a year. And I'm good with telling you that because that's real. But after we got over that, the joy, the joy. My money's still in my bank account. I didn't have to pay no divorce attorney. I didn't have to split our stuff, my family. We still have Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and all of those great things together. It is amazing. It pays off. I think our society has gotten used to the microwave thing. We expect that everything's worked out. Just like you turn on the TV and you watch this little, romantic comedy. An hour later, they've gone through their tragedy, they've recovered, and everything's fine. Things just don't work like that. Real life is messy. There's drudgery, and you got to put in the work, period. Period. And with that, I think it was a wonderful question. I think I'm ready to sign off. So I hope you tune in next time when we talk more about life's issues. Be good to yourself and be good to others.